It started as a normal Tuesday evening. I was cleaning up after dinner when my son, Ethan, looked up from his homework and said something that froze me. "Mom, why don't we ever see Uncle James anymore?" My hand stopped mid-scrub. For a second, I pretended I hadn't heard him right. "What did you say?" He repeated it, this time more curious than before. "Uncle James. We used to have dinner with him a lot. He was funny. Did he do something bad?" It hit me like a wave I wasn't ready for. That name hadn't been spoken in our house for over a year. I thought we had moved past it, buried it deep enough that it wouldn't resurface. But kids remember. They remember the people who made them laugh, who played games with them, who treated them like they mattered. And James had done all of that, until he didn't. I mumbled something vague about people drifting apart, about how adults get busy and lose touch. But I could tell Ethan wasn't buying it. His eyes searched my face like he could feel the lie behind my words. I walked into the living room to escape his gaze and found myself standing in front of the bookshelf. Without thinking, I reached up and pulled out the old photo album. Dust clung to the edges. I opened it to a page from a summer barbecue 2 years ago. There he was, James, grinning with a plate of ribs in one hand and his other arm slung around my husband. Ethan was in the background chasing bubbles. I stared at the photo, wondering how we had gone from that to complete silence. How something so seemingly stable had crumbled under the weight of a choice. I heard Ethan's footsteps come up behind me. He peeked over my shoulder and smiled. That was a fun day. I nodded, feeling my throat tighten. Had been fun. Too much fun. James had stayed late that night, helped me clean up, laughed with me in the kitchen. At the time it just felt like kindness. Now, looking back, it feels like the first crack in the foundation. Ethan didn't notice the silence that followed my pause. He just skipped off to get ready for bed, satisfied for now with no real answer. But I was left standing there, holding a photo of a memory that no longer felt innocent. His question lingered in the air long after he was gone. It wasn't just about James. It was about everything that changed because of him, because of me. I thought we'd moved on, that time had done its job. But healing doesn't erase. It only hides what you're not ready to face. And tonight, with one question, my son brought it all back. I didn't know how to tell him the truth. I still don't. All I knew was that nothing about that night felt normal anymore. 2 years ago, things were different. James had been in our lives for over a decade. My husband's best friend since college. He was practically family. Ethan adored him, and to be honest, so did I. Back then, my husband was always working late or traveling, and James would drop by just to check in. At first, it felt harmless. He'd help with groceries, fix things around the house, and always stayed for dinner if invited. I told myself he was just being a good friend. But the conversations started changing. They got deeper, personal. He asked about my frustrations, how I was really feeling, how I was handling everything alone. He listened in a way my husband hadn't in years. He noticed things. A new haircut, the way I folded the towels, even the music I played when I cooked. I started looking forward to his visits more than I should have. It wasn't instant. It built up slowly, almost invisibly. We were always careful. Nothing inappropriate. But one night, after a long talk about how stuck we both felt in our own lives, he looked at me differently. I felt it, and I didn't stop it. That night ended with a hug that lasted too long. Neither of us mentioned it after. But something had shifted. After that, we started texting more. Inside jokes, casual comments, compliments that blurred the line. I knew it wasn't right, but I also felt seen for the first time in a long time. My marriage had become routine. My husband and I barely spoke beyond parenting and schedules. With James, I could breathe. I told myself it was just emotional, that it wasn't a real betrayal. But even then, I think I knew I was lying. The night everything tipped over, it was raining. My husband was out of town again. James brought over food and we ended up talking late into the night. We were sitting close. Too close. I don't remember who moved first, but we kissed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't desperate. Just happened. And for a moment it felt right. Then reality crashed in. James pulled away first. He looked at me with this mix of regret and something else, something like fear. "We can't do this," he said. "We'll lose everything." I nodded, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to. Because part of me didn't care. Part of me felt alive again. And that was the most terrifying part of it all. After that night, things didn't go back to normal. We didn't talk about the kiss, but we didn't stop either. The silence between us was louder than any confession. Every interaction carried weight. Every glance was a risk. And every time he left, I felt more tangled than before. I kept telling myself I was in control, that I could stop anytime. But deep down, I knew I was already too far in. The line was crossed, and there was no going back. What started as emotional comfort turned physical, and we both knew it. The affair wasn't daily, but it was consistent enough to become a pattern. We never talked about what it meant or where it was going. We just kept meeting in quiet moments, stealing time we didn't deserve. Every time I looked at my husband, I felt like I was wearing a mask. Guilt pressed down on me constantly, but it wasn't strong enough to stop me, not yet. James changed too. He became distant when we weren't alone. Around others, he barely made eye contact. It was like he wanted to keep things hidden even more than I did. That should have been a warning sign, but I ignored it. I kept telling myself no one was getting hurt. I thought I was managing it. I wasn't. One afternoon I was in the kitchen with James. We weren't doing anything, just talking. But the air between us had that charged tension. Then I heard Ethan's footsteps. He came in quicker than either of us expected. James stepped back fast. Nothing happened, but Ethan looked confused. He asked why James looked nervous. I laughed it off, said something about a hot pan. But I saw the shift in Ethan's face. That moment haunted me for days. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just affecting me anymore. Ethan was watching, learning, picking up on things I didn't even realize I was showing. Felt sick. I ended it with James that night. No drama, no long discussion. I just told him it was over. He didn't argue. He nodded like he knew this was inevitable. We stood in silence for a long time before he walked out of my life. For a while I thought that would be the end. That I had dodged the worst of it. But secrets don't stay buried. My husband found out 2 weeks later. A forgotten message left open on my phone, a name at the wrong time, a detail that didn't add up. He confronted me late at night. I didn't lie. I didn't fight. I just stood there and told him the truth. What followed was rage, betrayal, disbelief. He didn't yell. He just looked at me like he didn't recognize who I was anymore. I begged for forgiveness. Cried. He walked out of the house and didn't come back for 2 days. When he did, he told me James was gone. Blocked. Removed. We started counseling. Not because he forgave me, but because of Ethan. We both agreed he deserved better. But nothing went back to how it was. My husband became colder. Not cruel, just distant. And Ethan, he never said it, but I knew he felt something had changed. Kids always do. The house was quiet, even when it was full. James had vanished without explanation. And Ethan was left with questions I couldn't answer. I had broken something that couldn't be fully repaired. I stared at Ethan after he asked about James, unsure how to answer. He looked so sincere, so unaware of the weight that name carried. I wanted to protect him from it, from the truth and everything that came with it. But I also knew I couldn't keep pretending. Not to him, not to myself. I didn't lie, I just said sometimes people make mistakes and it changes things. He accepted it, at least for now. But the guilt didn't go anywhere. Never really does. Time moved on, but I stayed stuck in that space between who I was and what I became. I kept thinking about how easily it happened. How one small step turned into a series of decisions that destroyed trust. Even now, I catch myself wondering if things could have been different if I had stopped it early, if I had chosen discomfort over desire. But I didn't. And now I live with the version of me I never meant to create. My marriage didn't fall apart, but it also didn't heal fully. We're still together, but we're not the same. There's a quiet space between us that never really closed. We're functional, polite, committed for the sake of Ethan, maybe out of habit. But love, I don't know, comes and goes in waves. Some days we feel like teammates, other days like strangers sharing a roof. He never brings it up, and I stop trying to explain myself. There's only so many times you can say sorry before it sounds empty. James disappeared without a trace. I haven't heard from him since the fallout. A mutual friend once mentioned seeing him at a gas station, but I never followed up. I didn't want to know. I don't hate him. I don't even blame him anymore. We both stepped into something we weren't strong enough to resist. But I do resent what it cost me. What it cost my family. What it cost Ethan. Sometimes I wonder what James thinks when he remembers us. Whether he regrets it or if he buried it like I tried to. There are moments when I think about reaching out, but I never do. The past should stay where it is. And I've learned that some closure never comes. Ethan still brings up James from time to time. Not often, but when he does, I feel that tightness in my chest again. He misses someone he didn't know he lost. He remembers the fun, the laughter, the kindness. He doesn't know the rest, and I pray he never finds out. He deserves better than that part of me. This story won't be something I ever share out loud, not to the people who know me. But writing it down helps. It's not about blame or excuses. It's just the truth. The kind that doesn't need sympathy. Only honesty. When Ethan asked me about James, I wasn't surprised that he remembered him. I was surprised that I still remembered so much too.